Hello, everybody. This is Leo Brady with AMovieGuy.com. I am incredibly excited today to be talking with somebody who is a two-time Oscar nominee, a real visionary filmmaker, a filmmaker who has just made so many films, classics at this point. He has his newest film, Seven Veils, coming out this weekend at the Toronto International Film Festival. This is Adam Egoyan. Adam, thank you
Well,
so much for being with me today.
good to be here.
So, watched the film the other day. This is really fantastic. I think this is some of your best work in a while. I think it is a a film that is complex but also multifaceted. And I look at your filmography. I think it's safe to say that you're interested in telling stories about the complexities of people. Would you say that that's a fair assessment? And
I think that's a fair assessment.
and is that curiosity what keeps you going back and making movies?
Yeah, yeah. I just think that there's something that happens when the camera's in the right place and you have the right performers and they're saying the right things and the like. It's just such an extraordinary way of getting access to people and people who are wrestling with things that they can't resolve, and then you create these structures and these narratives that allow them to move towards some sort of resolution. And if the viewer is involved with that, that's kind of an amazing journey for us to take. That we're and in this film, you have a character, and she, really, I since I worked with Amanda like 15 years ago, we just promised we would find something. And when this character began to evolve, I thought, okay, this is it, because there are so many people around her in her orbit who who she feels like are not quite getting her, or are there. She feels isolated, and but the viewer gets her, like, from pretty early on. Like, we understand that we have a special relationship with her, and we're watching her through this, even though a lot of people who are her husband, or her mentor, or her father, or her the people who are there to support her with the opera production, or this person she falls in love with, this understudy. They have their own agendas, and they're all trying to kind of position themselves, and she's kind of isolated, but we at all times understand what this means to her. And I think that's because Amanda's just so remarkable, and she's makes herself so available
Right.
as an actress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and so for you too, I'm going to sort of correlate what you said even about Amanda with something I recently listened to, one of Sarah Polley's interviews that she gave, and she spoke incredibly highly of you, just of your collaborative process with your actors. She's won an Oscar now. That, the Sweet Hereafter was a movie that you sort of in some ways put you on the map. Is a relationship with an actor like that, like Sarah Polley, or as you said, Amanda, is that something that you look for in every movie that you're making? And does it have to be a very special
I mean,
collaboration?
you said something really interesting. I mean, like, Sarah's character in Sweet Hereafter, I wrote that for her because I'd worked with her in Exotica,
Yeah.
and I knew, like, and I knew what she was capable of, and I could write it and calibrate Nicole in Sweet Hereafter. Because if you read Russell Banks' wonderful novel, who just passed away this summer, really one of the great American writers, but
Yeah.
but her character is very different in the novel than she is in the film, and I was able to, in the adaptation, think of Sarah, and in the same way, uh, like, I had worked with Amanda before on Chloe, so as I was writing Janine, I was able to you know have the actor in mind, and then of course you just pray that they're available and that they're as excited about the script as you are. But those are both, it's interesting you should point that out, they're both circumstances where I had worked with the actress, and I knew, and I was excited by a place that I could take them with
Yeah.
these other characters.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, and I think so too. Like she talked about the collaborative process too, and how she learned from you the way that you went about that. I mean, is that just a, a natural give and take thing that you have and that you want to have on every production?
Yeah, I think she's being super generous. I mean, I love Sarah, and we really, just, I'm beyond thrilled, in terms of what her directing career has become. But she's worked with a lot of great directors, so
Right.
I think I'm, like, she's been very kind and generous. But I think she's learned from a lot of the directors that she's worked with, like both good and bad. I mean, like, I think, if you want to be a director, there is no better front row seat than being an actor
Yeah.
and watching what's happening on set. And that's why it never surprises me when actors end up becoming great directors, because, well, of course, they're learning, like, in a way that I never got to learn. Most people who want to direct don't get to be in that. You're right beside the director, and
Yeah.
you're hearing them say what it is that they want you to do, and you're seeing that some of them are successful and some of them aren't, and you learn why they are or are not, and then you get to see the final result. So, um, I think what happened with Sarah is just that our collaboration happened at a point where she was almost going to walk away from the profession,
Right.
and then she realized that, no, that there was something to pursue here. And and I might have been, I'm not sure, but I think I was one of the first writer directors that she worked with, so I was, personally invested in this material, and so that might have been different from some of the work she was doing at that time, so that
Right.
she had exposure to that aspect of what the art form could be.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's interesting too, you talk about like being an actor and able to learn with a director. Seven Veils feels very much like you sort of going back a little bit to your roots. I mean, you had started as a playwright working on stage productions, and this is like a very unique hybrid of an opera and a narrative drama. Talk about sort of, did it feel like you were flexing old muscles, or did it feel like you were getting right? Was it like riding a bicycle, getting right back into how a production like this would be done? Is it multifaceted? You have a different viewpoint of the narrative stuff versus what's going on up on the stage?
Well, I mean, I've been doing, like, the theater and opera stuff, like, all along. I mean, so, but I've never brought the two worlds together. But I do think that when you're doing theater, it's communal. Like, the act of directing is something that everyone is involved with, because everyone is aware if it's working or not. Like, it's not like film where you can say, okay, it'll be fine when we cut it together, or it'll be fine when we add the music, or wait till the final mix. I mean, no, in theater it's all there. Like, so everyone
Yeah,
knows what's working or not.
right.
So I wanted to show how vulnerable that was, and I think this character is going through a very unusual journey, because I mean, they know what their past is. They know, what happened to them in their childhood. They know that they gave that story to this director who did this interpretation of an opera, but
Yeah,
now that person is gone, and they come back to remount it. So they're in this very weird situation where they're now reclaiming, something that inspired someone else, but their fear is that they may not be able to do it as well as that original production did, and so therefore their own sense of the relationship to their past becomes diminished, or it's like
yeah,
kind of a nightmare. And so I felt that that was unusual. Like,
yeah,
I think when people, it's funny, I'm just at the beginning of this process, but I'm gathering people are making a connection to the earlier films. And I think in the earlier films, these characters were in a really unusual place. Like, they were not working in any sort of formula, or um, there wasn't any, there wasn't they, there wasn't anything that I was referring to when I was thinking about those original the characters in those first films.
yeah,
So maybe this is a yes. It's true that in the last few films, I've been maybe using more genre, tropes, or I don't know. Like, as an artist, you just do what you feel like. You're not aware of going backwards, or you're just doing what interests you. But in this case, I would say quite unequivocally that this is a very unusual character. Like, what she's experiencing, I don't think I've seen another character go through this specifically, and how that torments her.
right.
And and how she's kind of isolated because all these other people around her have their own agendas, and we have this very clear compact with her as a viewer. Like we get what her journey is, and we're might be the only person that's along the ride with her. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that maybe makes it unusual.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this kind of helps me lead into my next question too, though. After watching, Remember and, some of your other films, I am sort of impressed and see a little bit about the director's voice a lot in the narrative. It's not, you know, clear cut. It's not like you're not directly saying, I, Adam Egoyan, I am this character, I am that character, but there
Yeah.
definitely feels to be sort of your voice through these characters. I mean, in the character of Janine, did you feel like it was sort of this, you're working off of the material of Salome, but did you feel like this is sort of a story about a director being able, a person being able to say, this is my interpretation, this is my voice? That seemed to be what I was getting out of it. You talked a little bit about that. Is it, do you see yourself in it, in the character a little bit?
Oh, a ton. I mean, I've been in those situations. I mean, you're trying to get someone else to do something,
Yeah.
and and the only way they're going to be able to pull that off is if they're inspired by
Yeah.
what you're telling, right?
Right.
And so you'll do anything as a director to get them to do that.
Right.
But you should mention Remember, because to me, what was exciting about that film was Martin Landau's character and him trying to get Christopher Plummer to execute this plan. So in a way, he's a director as well, right?
Right.
And what he's trying to get, he's got all the plans and he's trying to. So I think very often there are these characters in my films that have an agenda and are trying to get someone else to do something so
Yeah.
they can resolve things emotionally for themselves. So they become like these weird avatars. And you're right that in the earlier films there are a number of characters like that: insurance adjusters or tax auditors, or
Right.
people who kind of have this weird access into other people's lives and trying to get them to do things for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. That's what I do most of the time as a director. You're trying to inspire people to do things that they wouldn't be doing otherwise, right?
Right.
And and I think some of the most outlandish and kind of but emotionally resonant moments in this movie are when Amanda just is not able to get someone else to understand what they want, what she wants them to do, right?
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and, and it's so clear to her, like she's like, and you can't physically like make somebody do something that their body's not kind of getting, right? It just
Right.
it feels stilted, right? And it kind of drives her insane, right?
Yeah.
And especially now, in the age of intimacy coaches, and you have all these filters, you can't really just do it. You can't. And
Right.
I think it's kind of an interesting kind of situation she's in.
Yeah. Um, uh, Last question. You talked about working with Amanda. This film is a much different dynamic from what she does in Chloe. Her character in that is much more femme fatale, much more seductive. Um, but what brought the two of you back together, and can you describe a little bit how that relationship changed from Chloe to Seven Veils?
Well, I just really I really loved working with her and Chloe, and I because I have to say that there is something, like, yes, they are crazily different characters, but in both of them there is like Chloe also believes that she needs to be with Julianne Moore's character, and at a certain point it's frustrated, like she doesn't get what she wants, and of course then it's falling to all sorts of cliches maybe, and like I didn't write that film, but
Right.
but 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 I could see in her expression and her feeling that all those sentiments were available to me, and there was nothing, there's something vulnerable about it. She wasn't, even though she was playing a femme fatale, there was something emotionally available, and so we really, I think, that experience was so positive, just in terms of our collaboration, that we knew we wanted to do something else,
Yeah.
but it took us long to find out what it would be.
Right. Yeah, well, she's got great elegance, and there's you can sense like almost a different sense of maturity from her in this role, which I feel like she has been born to take on roles like this. I
Yeah.
often I hate to see her sort of pigeonholed to like the girlfriend or the love interest, where here she is very powerful. There's a dynamic to her, so I think you really pull that off.
Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
well, you know, she's a very special actress, and I felt there were moments where I was just, she's the only person who could have, you know, found that tone. You know, like there was a really specific tone. There's something. It's not. It's hinged somewhere between despair and lunacy. You know, like it's like,
Yeah.
and she gets. You know,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Adam Egoyan, thank you so much for talking with me today. Seven Veils is premiering at the Toronto International Film Festival on Sunday, September 10th. Congratulations.
thank you so much. Thank
Thanks
you.
so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.